Welcome back to the deep dive. So you've brought us a fascinating stack of source material today, and it seemed to bypass the usual conversation entirely. We're not talking about daily budgets or stock tips.
Exactly. We're going straight to the architectural blueprint.
The architecture.
Yeah. Our mission for this one is really foundational. We're kicking off a whole series focused on building sustainable financial independence. And before we can even get to the practical steps, which we will in future deep dives, we have to lay out the map.
The conceptual map.
Right. It's about defining the language, the structure, and, the mandatory sequence you need to achieve real, lasting freedom.
And it seems like the biggest conceptual roadblock, the one we have to clear first, is one that everyone trips over. The difference between wealth and financial independence. Our sources are crystal clear. Most people treat them as the same thing.
When they're really cause and effect. And that confusion, it's the Achilles heel of the whole financial conversation, really. The gut feeling is that if you just earn enough money, you're successful.
And therefore independent.
Right. But the architect of this system, Tamir Khaham, he argues that wealth fundamentally is just a result. It's a snapshot.
A number on a page.
Exactly. A number, a snapshot of the assets you have or the income you earn at one specific point in time. It's purely a quantity.
That's static.
It is. But financial independence, FFI, that's a structural life condition. It's a dynamic process that you have to intentionally build and maintain.
So if you only chase the number,
you could spend your whole life chasing bigger salaries, bigger deals, but you're still fundamentally dependent on your own active labor to keep that number up. You haven't actually built the machine that generates freedom.
which is why we see this all the time, right? High-income professionals, the famous doctor, the top lawyer, they look incredibly wealthy on paper. But the second they stop working, their entire financial system it crumbles, or at least starts to decay fast.
Yeah.
They have wealth, but zero independence.
Because the wealth is tied completely to their time. And that vulnerability is the exact problem this whole strategy is designed to solve.
Okay, so let's define it. What is true FI, according to this framework?
It's actually a very elegant and simple definition. Financial independence is achieved when your passive income consistently covers your total living expenses.
Passive income being?
Income you are not trading your time for.
So your net worth, that big number we talked about, it's actually secondary.
It's secondary to the quality and the reliability of your cash flow. The whole game is about shifting your economic structure, moving away from depending on labor
Your 9 to 5.
to a new structure that depends on ownership. Ownership of income-producing assets, of systems that make money.
And this leads us to the core philosophy that underpins this whole series.
It does. First, financial independence, then wealth.
That feels so backward to most people.
I know, because wealth is just the natural consequence of having a secure, independent structure. It's not the thing you need to start.
People are desperate for capital now, so they jump right into, risky investments. They're trying to hit the wealth lottery.
And they skill all the foundational work. It's like trying to build a skyscraper on quicksand instead of bedrock. You just can't skip the foundation.
So to understand why this blueprint is so rigid, we need to talk about the architect.
We do. The man who codified this into a 3-stage strategy and 13 sequential steps.
We're talking about Tamir Khaham. He runs the YouTube channel, The Golden Path to Financial Independence. But his background is really the key here.
It is. He wasn't a financial advisor. He was a salaried senior systems engineer.
And that's it right there. The systems architecture background.
That is maybe the most important detail. He's not looking at this as a wish or a philosophy. It's an engineering problem. It needs a mandatory sequence. It has to be robust, predictable, failure-resistant.
He's also the official Hebrew translator of The Richest Man in Babylon. That tells you a lot about his focus.
Timeless principles, not market fads.
So how did he get here?
Yeah.
His personal journey is what validates the system.
Right, and it's not a motivational story, it's a proof of concept. For decades, he operated like most of us, exchanging a high salary for a lifestyle, for survival. Even with a high income, he was still in that paycheck-to-paycheck loop into his mid-40s.
So what broke him out of it? What was the cognitive shift?
It wasn't a market crash or some big event. It was internal. He said it happened around age 45, after he started engaging with ideas from sources like Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
And the shift was psychological.
Entirely. It was moving from the identity of a survivor, someone who's just reacting to bills and market news, to that of a responsible capital manager, an asset owner.
Okay, let's unpack that. That identity shift is the real beginning of the sequence. What does that actually look like?
Well, a survivor is reactive. Any money that comes in, a salary, a bonus, they see it as something to be spent immediately to, upgrade their life.
Or to pay down a stressful bill.
Right. To relieve immediate pressure. They're constantly playing defense. Their goal is just to stay afloat.
So a bonus means a new car, a vacation. Money is an end result, something to consume.
Absolutely. But a capital manager, they're proactive. They're strategic. When that same bonus comes in, they don't see a reward for past work. They see raw material.
They ask a different question.
A totally different question. They asked, how can I deploy this capital to buy me more freedom in the future? They see money as an input, not an output.
That is a profound difference. So the single biggest financial decision you'll ever make isn't what stock to buy.
No.
It's the internal decision to change your identity.
That's it. That is the essential starting point for the entire path. And Khaham applied that engineering mindset while he was still an employee. He started systematically acquiring yielding assets, properties, things like that, often in partnership to lower the risk. He used his salary as fuel for his asset engine.
And the proof is in the results. That passive cash flow eventually covered a huge chunk of his family's expenses. He built the structure first.
And the wealth just followed. It couldn't not. Which brings us back to the core question for you listening. Why is this internal structural approach better? Does having a lot of money actually guarantee freedom? Or is it just potential energy waiting to be used correctly?
So to build that structure, we need to start with the foundational logic. The 3 core principles that make this whole sequence mandatory. Let's start with the first one.
Okay. Principle 1 is identity before action. If you try to jump ahead and just focus on the actions like investing before changing your internal programming, you are setting yourself up for failure. It's almost guaranteed.
We've all seen the stories about lottery winners. They get this massive influx of wealth.
Yep.
But their internal operating system is still set to survivor or scarcity. So they subconsciously find ways to just get rid of it, to get back to their default state.
That's the key insight. The money isn't the problem, the psychological programming is. If you haven't done that internal work, the money will just bleed out through reactive, fearful spending. The capital manager identity has to come first.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. So once the identity is in place, what's next?
Then we move to the second non-negotiable principle, resilience before growth. This is your financial firewall.
And this is the one people always want to skip.
Always. Because it's not exciting. But resilience means stability and control. An engineer knows a system is only as strong as its weakest point. If you have big financial holes like high-interest credit card debt, no emergency savings, chaotic cash flow...
You've got a fundamental structural weakness.
A huge one.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter how much income you pour in the top, it's all just going to leak out the bottom in interest payments, overdraft fees, or, being forced to sell assets in a crisis.
You have to secure the base first.
You have to plug the holes. Think about it like a house. You don't start building a huge new extension before you've fixed the leaky roof and made sure the wiring is safe. The initial work isn't glamorous, but it's mandatory.
So if the foundation is unstable, trying to grow isn't fast, it's just reckless.
That's the takeaway. And once you have the right identity and you've built that resilient foundation, you naturally arrive at the third principle.
Look at you.
Wealth is a consequence. It just becomes the inevitable, natural outcome of running a correct, stable process. It stops being the goal. It just becomes the scoreboard.
Okay, that logic is powerful. Identity, then resilience, then growth. So now let's look at the how. The conceptual map of the 3-stage strategy itself, just a high-level outline.
Right. So the journey starts with stage I, building financial consciousness. This part is all internal. It's about clarity. It's the planning phase.
And this covers the first couple of steps. Step 1 is that identity change we talked about, moving from survivor to capital manager and asset owner.
And that leads right into step 2, defining your FI index. People say, I want to be rich. That's uselessly vague. An engineer needs a specification. The FI index turns that wish into a number.
So what does that involve, conceptually?
It forces you to define your actual living expenses right now and then figure out the exact amount of passive income you'd need to cover that number. If you need, say, $6,000 a month to live.
You have to calculate what amount of assets yielding at a safe rate will generate that $6,000 every single month.
Exactly. It turns a fantasy into a specific, measurable engineering problem. A problem with a known solution.
Okay, so once we have the internal clarity and the target, we move into the engine room.
Stage 2, building financial resilience. This is where the systems engineer really comes out. The focus is stability, order, control, plugging all those leaks. This is the longest stage. It's got 8 critical steps.
Wow, 8.
Yeah, but for this overview, we can group them into 3 main focus areas. First is transparency and control. That's mapping where you are right now and starting a conscious budget.
And this isn't about cutting coupons and depriving yourself.
Not at all. It's about allocating your money based on your deepest values, not out of fear or habit. This is what stops the chronic overdrafts, the little financial hemorrhages.
Okay, clarity and control. What's the second focus area?
The second is security and shock absorption. This is non-negotiable. Building your emergency fund, your liquid shock absorber, and then aggressively tackling bad debt, especially credit cards and personal loans that are actively destroying your foundation.
Right. You can't outinvest at 20% interest rate.
You can't. You have to neutralize the enemy inside the gates first. Then the third area is protection and automation. Setting up your financial firewall insurance, legal planning so one disaster can't wipe you out, and critically, automating your good habits so the system runs on its own.
Stage 2 sounds like where most of the hard work happens, the necessary grind.
It is. It eliminates fragility. And once that foundation is totally secure, only then do we finally move into stage 3, growth and economic freedom.
And the focus shifts completely.
From defense to offense, you've secured the base, and now you have extra capital you can deploy with confidence. Step 10 is putting it all to work, acquiring your first yielding asset, your first income engine.
And because you did stage 2, you can take a calculated risk. If that first asset fails, your life doesn't fall apart. Your resilience is there to catch you.
Correct. The sources mention Khaham's path with real estate, but this applies to anything that decouples income from time digital assets, a business, anything.
And the final 2 steps are about replication. Building more of those income engines until you move from required work to chosen work.
Until your assets cover all your expenses and your time is truly your own.
Now, you mentioned a 13th step that runs in parallel through all of this.
Right. Step 13 is the commitment to continuous learning. This isn't a passive state you achieve. The world changes markets, laws, tech. You have to keep your knowledge base up to date to keep the system robust and adaptable.
He started learning about digital assets in his late 60s, which is a testament to that.
Absolutely. The learning never stops.
So what does this all mean for you listening at home? We've laid out that financial independence isn't just a big number or a vague ambition. It's a sustained, sequential, structural process.
And the central finding really is the power of that specific order. Identity first, resilience second, and only then growth as a consequence. Just having this high-level map is the first big step that separates the proactive capital manager from the perpetually reactive survivor.
In our next deep dive, we're going to jump right into stage I, step 1. We'll get into the practical actions you need to take to really make that shift in your money mindset and assume the identity of an asset owner.
And that leaves us with one final thought for you to consider. Think about Tamir Khaham's turning point in his mid-40s, the shift from reacting to your finances to systematically managing them. It all starts with one question. Which internal operating system are you running right now? The reactive survivor or the proactive capital manager? 3 seconds of silence.